The New Orleans Saints may have shown some signs of life, but it simply wasn't enough here at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. We got all that and a little bit of land yap for you on today's episode of Locked On Saints.
You are Locked On Saints, your daily New Orleans Saints podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is good, Who Dat Nation and Who Dat family? Welcome into another episode of Locked On Saints, a postcast episode here live for you from Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in London, England. We appreciate you, as always, making Locked On Saints your first listen of the day, every day. Don't forget that we're free and available on all podcast apps and on YouTube as well. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Ross Jackson, at Ross Jackson Nola on Twitter, your New Orleans Saints expert, credentialed member of the media, CrescentCitySports.com, USA Today Saints Wire, and Tuesdays over on Locked On NFL. And, of course, here with you every single Monday through Friday, no matter where the New Orleans Saints are, here on Locked On Saints. Appreciate you very much for joining us for another live postcast episode of the show here. We're also going to be doing our kind of full show, our full Monday show here at the stadium as well. So you're going to get to take in the incredible views, those of you who are watching from YouTube, and then those of you who are listening on the show. I'll let you know we're going to have a little bit of background noise and things like that as well. But hey, doing what we got to do to make sure that we're getting to you live as quickly as possible with everything you need to know from this New Orleans Saints matchup. So let's start off just sort of discussing where the New Orleans Saints kind of are right now, right? How are they feeling? What in the world is going on with this team? All of that. The New Orleans Saints are a team right now that simply keep shooting themselves in the foot, and that's probably the biggest issue for them right now. They showed some signs of life in this game. Andy Dalton led a good game, although he had the turnover. The Saints were without Michael Thomas, but they were still able to move the ball through the air thanks to Chris Olave, who again led this New Orleans Saints team in receiving yards. They were without Alvin, Kamara, but Latavius Murray looks like he has not been away from football at all, let alone away from the New Orleans Saints. So what was the issue for this team? Why weren't they able to get things going? Two turnovers and a false start penalty, giving up 9 points to the Minnesota Vikings. And then, of course, we can't go without discussing just how bad the officiating was in this game. I mean, look, to a certain point, you can't blame officiating for a win or a loss. The team still has to do things that will either win or lose them their game. And the New Orleans Saints did things that lost them their game. So we can't fully accuse everything there. But an illegal hands to the face penalty, that very clearly was not an illegal hands to the face penalty. It wasn't even a hands to the face penalty. It wasn't even a to the face penalty. It was simply Tyrann Mathieu playing defense. A downfield pass interference that gave the Minnesota Vikings the ball on their the 3-yard line within the 5. That didn't look at all like it was anything more than an egregious face mask penalty on the opposing team. Should have been offsetting penalties. So there are some things there that you look at and you say, okay, well, the New Orleans Saints can only control what they control. But even the things that they can control, they still found ways to give up bad situations to themselves, right? The 2 turnovers, Deontay Hardy, who maybe should have called a fair catch on that one, ends up with the fumble that leads to the turnover. You get an opportunity there with Andy Dalton to lead a 2-minute drive at the end of the first half, but you have the sack fumble there. Andy Dalton saying, I thought I had it, simply got hit too hard, thought I had put it away, clearly, just popped out on him. So, those are things that the referees had nothing to do with. Those are just mistakes that the New Orleans Saints have made time and time again, particularly in fumbles. I believe they're at 10 fumbles so far this season, and that's not the New Orleans Saints team that we're accustomed to seeing that usually does so good at protecting the ball, including setting an NFL record just a few years ago with only 8 turnovers. So for the Saints, there are still some things, despite what's out of their control, that are within their control, that they're still not in the best shape with just yet. And time is running out for this New Orleans Saints team, depending upon how deep you're willing to take a losing record into a 17-game season. Safety Tyrann Mathieu, who had the Saints' first interception of the season today, spoke a little bit about exactly that in his post-game presser, saying that, look, you feel pretty okay about everything right now with there being a situation to where you have, 1-3, you're only 4 games through a 17-game or a 17-round bout, as he put it. So yeah, there's still a lot of time to turn things around. But one of the things that he also highlighted was that eventually you start to run out of time. So the sooner the better for the New Orleans Saints. And I will say they showed you those signs of life here on the field, or on the pitch, I guess I'll say, since I'm here in London. We've got a good question here from Austin Royal, who's saying, is there any chance that they might switch over kick and punt unit returners? I think so. I mean, I think you have Rashid Shaheed standing by in the wings for exactly that. Deontay Hardy has fumbled, in this game, has fumbled already this season, hasn't been the returner that he usually is. And the special teams unit and the offense are the two units that are shooting themselves in the foot so much that the Saints defense, despite the fact that they were getting stops and that they were forcing field goals that could have easily been touchdowns, they can only do so much. And so you can't have the errors on special teams. You can't have the errors over on offense. So one thing you can do to mitigate that is exactly what Dennis Allen mentioned after the game, that they need to evaluate who the players are that are holding the ball when those fumbles happen, when these turnovers happen. The issue is that it's been so many people. You've seen it from Deontay Hardy, you've seen it from Andy Dalton, you've seen it from Jameis Winston, you've seen it from Mark Ingram. You've seen it from Alvin Kamara. So many players having issues holding on to the football here that one change isn't going to do it, but one change is certainly a place to start, and that's a pretty simple one to get a look at. I loved what Latavius Murray did in this game. He made a very, very strong argument to be added to the active roster as soon as this week, as the Saints head back home to take on the Seattle Seahawks. And that's really where you're looking for the New Orleans Saints to maybe make some type of last-ditch effort to make the biggest change possible to make sure, and I don't mean change as in a change at running back, a change at quarterback, anything like that, but simply turning the corner. You have to get it done soon. So is this 1-3 start for the New Orleans Saints insurmountable? No. But is it getting very close? Yes. I'll explain why as we continue on with today's postcast episode of Locked On Saints. Before we get to that, though, it is my great pleasure to tell you about our friends over at Prize Picks who are presenting today's episode. You can get a 100% instant deposit match over at Prize Picks today by using the promo code Locked On. It's daily fantasy, the way that you should be playing daily fantasy. You're not going up against spreadsheet wizards. You're not going up against different lineups. You're not going up against mystery computer lineups either. All you're doing is picking 2 to 5 players, selecting whether or not you think they're going to go in at more or less than their Prize Picks projection. So it's you, your knowledge of the game, your knowledge of the matchups, all the things that you trust that can end up winning you up to 10 times your entry over at prizepicks.com. Once again, you get that 100% instant deposit match by heading over to prizepicks.com or downloading the Prize Picks app so you can start playing daily fantasy football today. You can get that 100% instant deposit match of up to $100 by using promo code Locked On, meaning if you deposit $100, they'll give you $100. You deposit $50, they give you $50. Once again, that is prizepicks.com. Promo code Locked On for that 100% instant deposit match of up to $100. I also want to tell you about our friends over at Built Bar, the best tasting protein bar on the market. And trust me, I've tried all of them. I brought a bunch of Built Bars with me here to London to make sure that I had snacks on the plane, all that good stuff. And right now, one of my favorites is the cookie dough chunk puff, which have a light, chewy texture of marshmallow, real cookie dough chunks, which I absolutely love. It's my favorite ice cream flavor. It's now my favorite, my second favorite ice cream flavor. And now it's my second favorite Built Bar, because my favorite Built Bar and my favorite ice cream, mint chocolate chip, hands down. No doubt about it. 160 calories, a whopping 15 grams of protein in these cookie dough chunk puff bars. Make sure you go and check them out, as well as all of the other outstanding flavors of outstanding protein bars over at built.com. You want to use the promo code LOCKEDON15, LOCKEDON15. Use the numerals so you can get 15% off of your order. Once again, that's builtbar.com, promo code LOCKEDON15. Is this New Orleans Saints 1-3 start insurmountable for the team? No. This is a team that has had slow starts before, but the time is running out. So I'm not going to sit here and be super optimistic about this team right now. I'm just not going to do it. I'm sorry. But I'm not going to be super pessimistic about this team either, because every team has an opportunity to right the ship. Every team in every situation has the opportunity to turn things around. This is the NFL. Nothing is black and white in the NFL. But things can get black and white very, very quickly. It's not there yet. It's not there yet for the New Orleans Saints, though. So while I'm not willing to be overly optimistic about this team, while I'm not willing to be overly pessimistic about this team and completely count them out, they have to be able to start to right the ship quickly. The issue is that they have had bad performances against bad teams. They have been the worst football team on the field against teams that should be worse football teams than them. The Carolina Panthers, the Atlanta Falcons, with the exception of the fourth quarter. The New Orleans Saints have scored 2 touchdowns so far in the first 3 quarters of action in each of their last 4 games combined. Not good, not helpful. Now, things really got going for the Saints here in the second half. Maybe that's some stuff that you can build off of, but there are no moral victories in the NFL. You have to be able to take what you learned from this game and turn it into an actual victory. You have to get a win. You have to get a notch in the win column. So that's where the New Orleans Saints are right now. Is 1-3 insurmountable? Nope, teams have done it before. 1-4, not so great. 1-4, you also end up in a situation here to where you're running out of the bad teams. You're running out of the teams that aren't good for you to be able to turn things around. Let's look at the Saints' upcoming schedule here throughout the rest of the season. Yeah, they've already taken on 3 division opponents. They've lost to 2 of them. They also lost now to an additional NFC opponent. Next week, they have another NFC opponent, a winnable game against the Seattle Seahawks, a team that's been hot and cold, but you have to be able to fix all of the issues. You can't beat yourself in this game, and the Saints have shown a propensity to put themselves in that position already this season. Then you've got the Cincinnati Bengals at home. You've got the Arizona Cardinals on a short week away. You've got the Las Vegas Raiders, who sure are struggling, but are still a good team with talented, with some talented pass catchers there, and Darren Waller as well as Devontae Adams. The Baltimore Ravens, the Pittsburgh Steelers on the road. At home. This is going to get tough for the New Orleans Saints pretty quickly. Sorry, I said the Pittsburgh Steelers at home. Pittsburgh Steelers are away. My apologies. The schedule gets really tough. And so if you're going to start to right the ship, you've got to do it on Sunday. You have to get it done on Sunday against the Seattle Seahawks. If you can't get it done against the Seattle Seahawks, I don't think it's irresponsible or unwarranted to assume that they can't get it done against the Baltimore Ravens or that they can't get it done against the Pittsburgh Steelers. So not even going into the X's and O's, not even going into the things that need to go right individually, because we've been talking about it week after week after week. It's the turnovers, it's the penalties, it's shooting yourselves in the foot, it's the bad stuff on special teams, it's the bad stuff on the offense, it's not being able to keep the New Orleans Saints defense off of the field for long enough for them to remain effective. It's all the same things that we've talked about since week 1. Now, you've got to be able to get all of that fixed. You can't beat yourself against the Seattle Seahawks of all teams and then expect, here's what I will say. This New Orleans Saints locker room, this New Orleans Saints team is not ready to give up on themselves. Mario Davis, Cam Jordan, Tyrann Mathieu, Michael Thomas, all of these guys, these veteran leaders all over this roster, they are not ready to give up on themselves. Chris Olave has been outstanding. Will Lutz missed a 61-yard field goal. Can't hold that against him. That's a very low percentage because he just knocked through a 60-yard field goal before that. The Saints have the pieces, and we've said this all year long, but the important thing is that this team, this locker room, this roster, these players, they're not willing to give up on themselves. And Dennis Allen's not going to give up on this team either. But you got to go back to the drawing board on some of these coaching decisions. You got to go back to the drawing board on some of the things that have happened. Who you're putting the ball in the hands of in pivotal moments when they keep putting the ball on the ground, things like that. So it's tough. And I'm not ready to start looking at the draft yet. I'm not ready to start looking at, what the New Orleans Saints need to do with the trade deadline yet or anything like that. Right now, they need to focus on next week and getting a win at home in the Mercedes-Benz Superdome, the Caesars Superdome, in front of their home fan base. Hey, buddy. And not in a situation to where you're going on the road on Thursday night or that you're hosting the Cincinnati Bengals 1-4 on the season. You can't be in that situation. So for the New Orleans Saints, no, 1-3 is not insurmountable, but 1-4, it quickly starts to get there. For more on the New Orleans Saints, I'll be back with you a little bit later today, going into sort of the Sunday night for those of you still in the U.S., as well as Monday morning with our longer usual episode. All of that will break down Latavius Murray's performance, we'll break down Chris Olave's performance. How did the offense look with Andy Dalton? Is there even a conversation in terms of who the quarterback should be for this team? All of that. We'll get to all of it, I promise. But right now, I just wanted to focus on where the New Orleans Saints are, where they need to go next, and whether or not your New Orleans Saints are down for the counter. Right now they're not, but if you're an old wrestling fan like me, they're at the third arm drop, right? They're at the first arm drop, it already went down. The second arm drop already went down. Referee's going to hold up that third arm. They're here right now. Once that arm drop happens, are they going Are they going to shock the crowd by holding the arm up, shaking it, and making sure that they stand back up? Or is that going to fall to the ground and be the end of the match? We'll have to see. The New Orleans Saints have control of their own destiny still moving forward, but the window is closing. Can they get it done? We'll discuss more later on today/Monday's episode of Locked on Saints. Appreciate you, as always, for making us a part of your day here on the show, a part of your routine. Make sure you also stick around to check out the Peacock and Williamson NFL show as well for everything else going on around the NFL in less than 30 minutes. Appreciate you, as always, for saying yes to me and the show. As always, if you see me, say hi. If you need anything else around your New Orleans Saints, make sure that you are subscribed and that you are here on Locked on Saints, and follow me on Twitter at Ross Jackson, NOLA. Hit me up. Let me know how the family's doing. Let me know how you're living. Let me know how you're momming them. And trust Who Dat Nation. I'll holla at you.